The Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast with your host, Rich Decker.
Hello, and thank you for taking some of your valuable time to listen to the show. If you enjoy this show and have been inspired by this episode or another episode, I would encourage you to join our Patreon page. For those who are unfamiliar with Patreon, it's a platform that allows artists and content creators to build relationships with their audience, while at the same time earning enough money to keep providing the content. When you join our community, you will gain access to exclusive content such as live guest Q&As, behind the scenes, and other exclusive offers. And you can join for as little as $1 per month. There's a link in the show notes that'll take you directly to our page. My guest for this episode is Nikki Golly. Nikki's a certified nutritionist and wellness coach. She graduated with honors from the Arizona State University, and she spent many years learning how supplements can benefit all of us. She coaches her clients to a healthier lifestyle and helps relieve their pain. As a young child, Nikki experienced a tremendous amount of sickness and illness. As she says in the interview, she was sick all the time, and she was allergic to everything. So as she got older and started working at a supplement store, she began to experiment with various supplements and then got into the nutrition world and earned her degree and certification. What she found was that it seems so obvious, but we sometimes forget this. What we put into our body affects us. So nutrition is very important, as we all know, but there's so much misinformation, and one week this diet's good, another week that's diet good, eat this, don't eat that, oh, that's bad for you. But Nikki takes a very practical approach to nutrition. You will get a great amount of benefit from this interview. I was really pleased that she agreed to do this. This is the hero's journey of Nikki Golly. Enjoy. Well, thank you, Nikki. Thank you for joining us on the Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast. We've known each other a little while, but I don't know much about your background or where you grew up and how you ended up being a nutritionist. And I think it's an extremely important topic, not just because of the levels of obesity that we're experiencing, but we're getting ready to talking about colonizing Mars, but we can't figure out what we're supposed to eat. So it's an extremely important topic. But let's begin with your journey. Let's go back to your childhood and your family. Can you tell us where you grew up and what's one principle, and I ask every guest this, that your parents or someone you grew up with instilled in you that you carry with you today, and how has it affected your life?
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. I love getting my message out to the world. So a little more about me. I am actually from a super small town in central southern New Mexico. I usually laugh when I say New Mexico. People go, Albuquerque? And I'm like, well, no, it's about 4 hours south of Albuquerque, but still in New Mexico. And I grew up in super small town, like small. Most people don't even comprehend how small. Like my elementary school, my first and second grade class were in the same room. Like we had one teacher that taught both first and second grade. Also for third and fourth was the same way. We would have separate desks, we would face separate sides of the room for third grade and fourth grade, but we were actually in the same room with the same teacher. And in high school was pretty close. So in high school from like 9th grade to 12th grade, there was 200 people in my high school. I knew the first and last name and family history of everyone that I went to school with. It was amazing now that I look back on it, but oh my God, did I want to escape when I was going through it. I'm like, everyone knows me, and I could just love to have some anonymity. But I would say one amazing thing that my father instilled into me at a very young age, I was a real shy kid, which most people that know me now can't even fathom that. But I was super shy. But what my dad always said, because he could just talk to everybody. He could just talk to anyone. And I was like, how can you do that? What? Oh my gosh, I would never be able to do that. And one thing that he just said to me, and he was like, did you know like everyone is your friend. You just haven't talked to them yet. It was very opposite than most parents that are like, stranger danger, don't talk to strangers. Oh my gosh. My dad's like, yeah, strangers like, hey, everyone's your friend. You just haven't talked to them yet, which I thought was very different. And I appreciate him very much because I still feel that way. I feel that everyone's your friend. Like I'll joke, or my fiance, I'll come like out of the bathroom talking to somebody naturally. And he'll come up to me and he's like, so what's their name? How many kids do they have? Are they married? Have they been married long? Where do they live? And most of the time I can answer most of those questions in that short exchange, like while washing my hands in the bathroom, which is I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Some people think I'm a little crazy, but from going from that shy kid that was afraid to talk to everybody to anybody can now easily talk to everyone. And I truly love and appreciate people. So I'm interested in what they have to say.
Well, growing up in a small town, some people like it, some people don't. I grew up in a small town. I'm very grateful that I grew up in a small town. Now, granted, this was pre-internet and anything, really pre-computers or PCs. But did you like growing up in a small town or I mean, looking back now, I know you wanted to get out, but how do you feel about the small town life now?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I wanted to get out so bad when I was there. I really appreciate it. Being in the city and hearing what people went through in the city and like having really big schools or things like that. It was just like there was no violence to speak of. There wasn't really many drugs to speak of. It was very isolated, but it was beautiful at the same time just because I don't think my life was as crazy as a lot of people that have lived in the cities because of that, because I was isolated, because I'm that small town, naive kind of girl that I really appreciated that. And I really appreciated that my parents were able to do that, to being in a small town. But like I said, in high school and there's nothing to do, was like, oh my God, I just want to get out of here. I want to move to the big city where nobody knows me. And talking about super small town, like having 200 people in your high school and knowing everybody, everyone knows your business before you do. So it's like, oh, so-and-so, I'm so sorry that so-and-so broke up with you. And I'm like, wait, what? They broke up with me? That exact thing didn't happen, but it's pretty much like that. It was like everyone is in your business. Everyone knew, like you couldn't skip class. You couldn't be like, ooh, that rebel bad kid and skip class. I did that once. I went with a girlfriend and we went down to town. We drove around and did other stuff. And when we got back to school, they're like, so where were you this first periods? You and Nikki were both gone. And was like, So it's like you couldn't get away with anything. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, there was no crime and no drugs to speak of. So it was very safe. Definitely way safer than any of the city stuff has been.
Well, the way your father raised you and his philosophy on life is interesting as well. Because are you considered a millennial, or are you older than a millennial?
I'm actually right at the beginning of the millennials. So yeah, I'm a little different because I'm an only child too. So yes, I'm a millennial per age, but I spent most of my childhood hanging out with adults because there was not very many kids that were my age. So having a lot more adult conversations as a young kid, I think it's kind of changed it. So I'm definitely one of those bridge millennials that kind of have the ideals of the older generations, but kind of understand the millennials as well, which is, it's an interesting place to be. So yes, I'm age-wise and sometimes mentality-wise a millennial. Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that so many people, my generation, birthed the millennials. So many of people, it was helicopter parenting, like madness. right? Like be afraid of everything. So to have your father say, don't be afraid, I think that's awesome because I don't know. We're wired for survival, so we're always looking for threats. But if you reinforce that with your worldview, then the world's a horrible place. So with that view that you were raised with, the world probably doesn't seem like such a bad place. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Because if you look at the news, it's always bad stuff. It's always negative. They talk about what I would recommend or say that 99.9% of the population is out to do good, out to improve themselves, out to live a good life the best they can, maybe make an impact. There's only that 0.1% that's really out there to do harm, to bomb schools or to go shoot up Catholic churches, or it's like there's so much, but the news, the stuff that they portray, they only pay attention to that 0.1% that's out there doing harmful things. It's like rarely do you ever watch the news that it's good stuff. Like I don't call me a millennial when it comes to that, but I don't watch the news. Like I will leave the room when the news is on. Like, yeah, there's some information that I'll learn anyway because it comes up in conversation, like the Amazon rainforest is on fire right now, which is something that we should definitely pay attention to. It's not really getting a whole lot of publicity, but maybe it is now. Again, I don't watch the news, so I'm still getting that. But it, like the most important stuff you learn about anyway, so you don't necessarily have to watch the news. But watching the news only brings your energy down because they only focus on the bad stuff, the things that are going to get headlines, the things that are going to scare people. Like that's what I feel the news is out there to do.
Well, you're right. And I completely agree with you. I rarely watch the news. Some things filter through. But you know what? Here's a typical day in the world. And here's what goes on. Here's what the news actually is. Okay, today, for the most part, 7 billion people got along, just got through the day. But that's what happens, but that's not the news. That's not what's going to make the news. Yeah.
It's not noteworthy. It's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, you had a normal day. Like, oh, we don't want to report that.
Right. It's all the bad. So you wanted to get out of this small town, and I can understand that too. I grew up in a small town, and we spent all the time outdoors. But I remember being bored in the summer. I haven't been bored in years. I would like to be bored one day. But what did you want to do when you were a kid? What were your dreams?
One of my big things when I remember doing a report on the oceans when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. And we studied the oceans and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be an oceanographer. Like that is so cool, like studying the oceans. And obviously I didn't go into oceanography, but I do talk a lot about the oceans in my nutrition and especially plastics. Like plastics is one of those that are near and dear to my heart, that we need to stay away from plastics as much as possible, or just realize how much plastic is in our daily lives, like plastic packaging on everything, plastic bottles, plastic bags, plastic. I mean, it's just amazing and astounding at just how much plastic is everywhere. And that's kind of my love for the oceans coming through, because I've studied it and I've looked at it quite a bit, but there's so much plastic in the ocean that I've done a research in 2017. They called it the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So there's a giant floating island of plastic in the Pacific Ocean. And that giant plastic island is twice the size of Texas. And being a New Mexico girl, I lived right next to Texas. And you could drive through Texas for 2 days at 80 miles an hour, like flying. Like you could drive through that state and it would take 2 days. So to think of a plastic floating island twice that size just boggles my mind and fuels my fire to talk about it with everyone. Like, lower your plastic, be aware of your plastic intake. Don't take a plastic bag when you don't need it. Recycle the plastic bags when you get them. Like I have a whole thing underneath my sink and I take them to the grocery store because grocery stores is where you need to the stretchy plastic, like plastic bags and stuff, they need to be recycled different than in the recycle center, like your recycle bin, because they clog up the machines. They get caught up in the sorting machines and they destroy the machines. So it actually has to be put somewhere else, which is most people don't even know that. They're like, oh, a plastic bag. Oh, like you just recycle that in your recycle bin, which is not true. So getting people to recycle or just use less plastic. And I think we talked about this before, but the amount of plastics, if you have a plastic water bottle and you're drinking out of a plastic water bottle, you're getting microplastics in the water that you're drinking, especially if you've heated it or cooled it down, like put it in the freezer or left it in a hot car in Phoenix. Do not drink out of a plastic bottle that's been left in a hot car. Just don't do it. Dump it out and get a reusable water bottle because the microplastics, so when it heats up, it actually opens up the pores of the plastic. So it actually releases more of the plastic, your xenoestrogens, so basically fake estrogens, it releases it into the water that you're drinking. So when you're drinking that warm water out of a plastic bottle, you're drinking estrogens. And we don't need more estrogens. We're getting enough estrogens in our meats, in our food sources. We don't need to add extra estrogens with the waters that we're drinking because of the plastic. It's just amazing at what it does to the body. And you think of it as like, oh, it's just microscopic amounts. But if you actually look at the hormones in a human body, like we run on microscopic amounts of hormones.
Well, that's interesting. One of our previous guests, Ors, the old guy, his big thing is one of his big things is talking about how much testosterone levels in men have decreased over the last couple of decades. And he says that one of the big factors is plastics.
Yeah. Plastics, because they have this xenoestrogen. So the BPA or bisphenol A, a lot of plastic companies will be like, oh my gosh, this is BPA free. But if you actually jump down that rabbit hole, BPA free means that they're not using bisphenol A, they're using bisphenol B or bisphenol C, which still reacts the same when you're drinking it. So you're still getting that estrogen. It's there's really no way around it besides not drinking out of plastic. When I am a big proponent on drinking water because I'm a nutritionist, super, super important to drink water. But I talk to most everybody about getting a reusable water bottle using, i.e. glass. Glass is heavy. That's the downside, but glass is the absolute best. Or stainless steel, like get a reusable stainless steel water bottle. You can easily throw them in the dishwasher to clean them, but you're refilling it and that takes me to tap water. I watched a documentary, of course, that it's been removed and I can't find it anymore because it was too big of a whistleblower on some of the big corporations, but it talked about the regulations for water bottle companies and the regulations for tap water. Your tap water is actually far more regulated than what's coming in a plastic bottle. Everyone thinks like, oh, I'm going to buy this plastic water bottle because this is going to be cleaner than what's coming out of the tap. Not true. Simple words, not true. Just the regulation is far less on water bottle companies.
Well, that's interesting because I know one of the challenges that the water treatment plants have now is number one, pharmaceuticals, they're in the water, and also all this nanotechnology with the stain resistant stuff and all this, that's in our water now too. So I don't know what the solution is, but you at least need to be aware of what you're putting into your body.
Yeah. I mean, it's a rabbit hole that you can like be afraid of all food and all water if you jump down these little rabbit holes. But really what it comes down to is feed your body what it really needs. Less processed crap. That's i.e. in bottles, in packages. I mean, if you're going to eat less processed crap, you're going to get less plastic. It just happens that way. And then just being aware of what you're putting in your body. But yeah, plastics are just crazy. I was going to go off on a different tangent, but I commonly do that. Yes.
Let's get back to your story. So you're growing up. I know you had a lot of health issues as a kid. Can you elaborate on that? And what's your reasoning why you think you were so sickly as a child?
Yes. I was a sick kid. I really was. And I thought that was just me. That was my immune system. My immune system was always crap. I remember so often being in the doctor's office getting antibiotics for this and for that because I had ear infections. Oh my God, the ear infections I used to have were just debilitating. I remember screaming, taking antibiotics. I remember specifically being in the doctor's office and just like laying on the floor underneath the drinking fountain in the waiting room, just like screaming bloody murder because I couldn't, like, it hurt so bad that I didn't know what to do. And it's so scary. And I mean, that was my experience. Like, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be my parents, like you don't know what to do and your child screaming bloody murder because they're in such pain. But so yeah, I had ear infections and then I was sick probably every month, if not every season. So I would say season definitely when everything would change, and allergies. I've been allergic to everything my whole life, like dust, cats, dogs, trees, like beautiful flowers blooming. Like they'd always make me sneeze. And I mean, when you think of allergies, I had everything in the book. I had watery eyes, my eyes itched, sneeze, my nose itched. Not to be too graphic here, but I looked like I was a cokehead because I would always be touching my nose, like always itching my nose, and my eyes would be watering and itchy, and my ears would hurt, and then my tonsils would swell up. So anytime I used to joke like someone could sneeze across like a gymnasium and I would get sick. And not only would I get sick, I would turn it into strep throat. And my throat would swell up, and I never had my tonsils taken out. And I think it's just because I was in a super small town that they didn't know that, as they didn't readily remove tonsils. But it was just crazy. I mean, I was sick all the time, and I just thought that was my life. And so I really think that kind of helped me to pursue supplementation and then nutrition. Like I started in learning about supplements and learning what things could do because the normal drugs didn't work. They just didn't make me feel good. Like I would take antibiotics and yeah, it would make the ear infections go away, but I would feel awful. And then I would have to take antibiotics again because it's kind of this cycle. Like once you get it, I'm not actually helping myself. So fast forward quite a few years. I started learning more. I actually got a job in a supplement store, and I started learning more and more about what you can do to the body, what natural substances could help the body. And I learned that nettle, like stinging nettle, you'd actually take it in a supplement form and it would make such a difference to my allergies. It wasn't like your Claritins and your Zyrtex or those kinds of things, because I tried those, but those they never made me feel good. They would just dry my nose out. And I was like, well, being in a dry climate in the Southwest, I'm like, well, it just made it worse. I'm like, yeah, I don't have allergies, but now I feel all dried out and crusty, and then I feel like I get sick easier. So it was like, well, that didn't help. So that's when I found nettle, and nettle would just kind of make me feel somewhat normal again. And then I just kept learning and kind of diving into more things and learning that the importance of foundation, So a little bit more about me. I love people. I think it really came down to my dad. Like, everyone's your friend. You just haven't talked to them yet. You haven't really met them or engaged with them. But so I've always had a real interest in people and learning and helping myself, of course, at the same time, and learning so I would ask people lots of questions. So I worked in a supplement store, and I would research things with people because I was truly interested. Like, oh, you came in for this ailment or a bum knee or thrush or like skin irritations. And we'd kind of research it and look it up and figure out what would actually work. And a lot of the times it came back down to, in the book that I was reading, which is still an amazing book. I highly recommend everyone to look into it. But it's the Prescription for Nutritional Healing by Phyllis Balch. She's a PhD. Who was her and her husband. I think they got divorced and she got the rights to the book. But it's an amazing book. But pretty much every single thing that you looked up, it said, it recommended like a multivitamin or multimineral first, because it was her studies, many years of studying humans. She realized that a lot of ailments are caused by vitamin mineral deficiencies. So if you fix the vitamin mineral deficiencies, a lot of the other things kind of fall into place, or it's easier to fix the other things because the underlying foundation is set. And I've kind of moved forward and kept focusing on that. Even when I got my nutrition degree, I still focused on the foundations. And like, what does it do if you go back down, if you peel off all these different layers and figure out like, oh yeah, it's my allergies and I get sick all the time, but what's the foundation? Like, what am I missing in my diet, or what am I eating too much of in my diet that's causing these reactions? And the more I learned, the more I discovered, the more I learned for me that I'm allergic to dairy. And so cow's milk. I've been allergic to cow's milk. From the reactions I've had throughout my entire life, I have been allergic to dairy my entire life. And this bummer part is that I started drinking dairy when I was 1 month old. My mother breastfed me for a month and then moved me to formula, as many moms do because it's more convenient. And so I was introduced to something that I was allergic to starting at 1 month old. And it did take me until I was 27 to give it up. I didn't actually do this in my nutrition cards, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. But I did something like I recommend, and I went off dairy for a certain amount of time. And all I can say is, wow, like my life shifted. It took me a long time because I'm hard-headed, as most of us are. I was like, no, it can't be dairy. I like my cheese too much, and I love my Greek yogurts. Like, I would die without Greek yogurt because I eat that as a snack every day. And so I finally sat with it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. All right, you twist my arm. I'll try it. I'll give it up and see what it does. And it's been about 5 years since I've done dairy, and I noticed a difference. Well, that's a lie. Okay, I tested it here and there, as we do. I tested it, and I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not. Maybe the reaction's not that bad, or so, because I'm like, cheesecake is like one of my favorites. So trying cheesecake, and then I would be sick or I'd be miserable. And again, foundations, it all comes back down to your GI, your digestional health. And when I eat dairy, it shuts me down for like 2 days. But I never knew that wasn't normal as a kid. That was never taught to me. Nutrition wasn't a topic, and nutrition still isn't a huge topic in schools, to know like, oh, so pooping once a week is not normal. Pooping twice a week is not normal. You should poop 2 to 3 times a day. That would be ideal. And that doesn't happen for a lot of people, especially kids when you get into hormones and things like that. especially when you're eating foods like I was my whole life, eating something that I was allergic to that shut down my digestive system. So when I started going to the bathroom consistently and I stopped dairy, it was like, wow, oh my gosh, my life is totally shifted. I kind of went off on a tangent. I don't know if you're
It's like wheat. Dairy's in so many different things in the American diet.
Oh my gosh, yes. It is crazy how much stuff it's in. Like you actually have to pay attention and to read labels and to just be aware and ask questions because it's in everything. It's tasty. They use it in most baking and cooking and things like that because it's been around forever. But yeah, it's crazy.
I heard a guy describe cow's milk, and this is part of what I say to myself when I don't want to have dairy. Is you know what cow's milk is? It's baby calf growth food. So, as an adult human being, why do you need baby calf growth food? Well, you don't. And I've also heard that as adults, we don't have the enzymes in our stomach to properly digest dairy, even if we're not allergic to it. Is that accurate?
There's some. Most people actually have some form of allergy or indigestion of it. Yeah. In my studies, they say about 85 to 90% of the population has some form of allergy to dairy or the inability to digest it. Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy.
So even if you don't have a quote unquote allergy like you do, as an
Hmm.
adult human being, you shouldn't be drinking dairy or cooked cow's milk or in your food.
Right. Well, the other thing too is what we buy at the store and what we can buy, especially here in the United States, is not even close to resemblance of what actually comes out of the cow. So we have to think about that, like the amount of processing cow's milk goes through. So not only it's like I think it would be different, and I've actually tested this out even with my allergy. I've tried grass fed, non pasteurized cheese, and it did not have the same effect that normal dairy does.
The enzymes are taken out when it's pasteurized.
Well, yeah, the enzymes, the bacteria. I mean, yeah, there's some bacteria that are bad, but a lot of bacteria is good. That's new budding research talking about the microbiome and how important it is to take care of the gut bugs, so your bacteria that's in your digestive system. So, yeah, if you think about what happens to milk, milk is comes out of the cow, then it's um, separated because they separate the cream, then they homogenize it and then they pasteurize it. So they heat it up, they kill everything, good and bad, and then they homogenize it. So they mix it so vigorously that it doesn't separate. I mean, thinking like, what does that do to the chemical structures of the milk particles themselves to homogenize it? I mean, if it doesn't separate, like that's not natural. Like if it comes out of the cow, it separates. And then it has all these live enzymes and bacterias and things in them. So if they don't anymore, then it's not really natural. So if you're milking a cow and drinking what's coming out of your own cow or a cow that's somewhat close to you, then I mean, you're going to have a completely different outcome and it's going to taste completely different than something that you actually buy in the store. I think that's where, and that really comes back down into the nutrition and the foundations of stuff. If you're eating as close to the planet, so the less manufacturing, the less time it spends in a manufacturing plant or a purification plant or a creation plant, for lack of a better term, the better it is for you. So a tomato is always going to be better for you than tomato juice that's been pasteurized and put in a plastic bottle, per se.
So do you think that, going back to your story, do you think once you started taking supplements and these other things, that's when you started feeling better? Or do you think your immune system just got stronger, or is it both?
I honestly think it was It was the supplements that really made the biggest difference. It was first starting to supplement and then learning more, because typically when you start to feel better, things shift. Like you start paying more attention. So when I started feeling better, I started paying attention more to what I was eating. And then when I started paying attention to more what I was eating and I started feeling even better, like I started even paying more attention and learning more, because the more you learn, the more you realize that there is to learn. And that's the fun part with anything. It's like you learn a little bit, you feel like you know everything, and you learn a little bit more and you learn a little bit more, and then you realize that there's a lot to learn. And that kind of fueled me to get my nutrition degree, actually, because I was using my knowledge in supplements to give people tools to actually heal themselves, not just cover up certain things, but actually heal it. I mean, that's huge. And that is what the pharmaceutical industry, I wish they would focus on, but they don't. They focus on, and from my experience, they focus on things to fix specific ailment. Like we'll say diabetes, like they'll give you a drug that will help you balance your blood sugar. That's it. But that drug does just that thing. But nutritionally, if we do it from my side, if I give you a diet or a regimen or a way of eating or a lifestyle that balances your blood sugar, it not only helps your blood sugar, but it lowers your cholesterol. It lowers your triglycerides. It also helps you to feel better. Usually people poop more, which most people don't talk about. And that's one of the biggest things that I love to bring up that conversation with, is going to the bathroom, because your digestional health is your health. Like if your digestional health is awful, your health is also awful. And that was my experience as a kid. Like I said, I pooped once a week and I thought that was normal. I thought feeling like sick was the norm. Like that was my norm. That's what I experienced my whole life, until I went down and learned that I realized that wasn't normal. That was not even close to normal, much less was actually really bad for me long term. I know I have long-term effects because I've eaten dairy my whole life, but there are things that you can do to kind of rectify that. And that's where supplements come in, as honestly, they're stepping stones. There are certain supplements that I continue to take and I will continue to take, just because just adding that little bit more of variety when it comes to fruits and vegetables, or pumping your body full of extra nutrients, really helps no matter what's going on. Because again, the more you learn, the USDA says that we're supposed to eat 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day. I mean, that's impossible. I mean, I talk about fruits and vegetables all day long with my clients, and I still don't get 7 to 13 servings. And a serving is the size of your fist. So 7 to 13 fist-sized servings of fruits and vegetables. I mean, have you ever gotten that? I mean, especially on a day. How often do you get that amount of fruits and vegetables into your diet?
Well, after taking your course, a little more, but usually not that much.
Right? I mean, it's difficult. That's a lot of food, especially if you're not vegan and you eat other things. Like eating that much is difficult. It's still difficult. And that's where I use some supplementation to kind of bridge the gap between what we should be eating in an ideal world and what is actually feasible in our lifetime, in our culture.
So you started feeling better. You decided this nutrition thing is something you want to pursue. How'd you end up at ASU?
I actually moved to Phoenix, Arizona, because my best friend was there. And then I started working in the supplement store and learning more about supplements. I was like, well, nutrition, that's perfect. Like, I'm going to go study nutrition, kind of figure that out. Well, back up 1 second. Instead of doing nutrition initially, I was going for biochemistry because I wanted to become a doctor. And I spent about 1 semester in biochemistry and knew that wasn't for me. I was researching and I was like, well, I've spent it was like 4 years at that point working in a supplement store, giving people tools and supplements to get off pharmaceuticals and actually feel better. And I was like, well, and then I'm going to go to school for how long to be able to prescribe those medications that I know in my heart of hearts that I wouldn't prescribe them. So then I was looking into naturopathic medicine, and it just didn't feel right. And that's when I found nutrition, and it was like the heavens opened up, and I was like, yes, this is it. I was like, nutrition, because it all comes back down to food. So then I looked into the nutrition department and found out that ASU had the second most ranked nutrition department in the entire country. So it is actually second to none. It is amazing program and amazing teachers at ASU. So that's when I moved there and so it just happened to work out that I was already in Phoenix when I went to ASU, but it was an amazing education in nutrition and learning more and more about nutrition. And the interesting part is I thought they would go hand in hand with the supplements, but most of my professors, I actually knew more about the supplement side than they did. They actually recommended against supplements the majority of the time because they didn't know about it. And two, one of the only ways you become toxic in certain vitamins and minerals is through supplementation, that you won't actually become toxic in anything through food alone. But where they didn't know and where I had researched to that point is that you could fill in a lot of gaps that were really important that we can't get from food, or we can, but it's just not feasible, that kind of thing. So it's interesting. And that's where I truly feel what I do for my clients is quite different than most nutritionists, because I do focus on food. Food is the end goal, but I have such a vast knowledge in supplements that I can actually give people the stepping stones to get there faster and to fill in a lot of those gaps quicker than diet alone.
So you've got your degree in nutrition, but let's get into the nutrition side. I mean, we've been alluding it the whole time, but why is it over the years you hear conflicting information about what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat? This is good for you. Oh, and then no, that's not good for you. This diet's good. Oh, don't do that. Why is it that we're talking about colonizing Mars? Artificial intelligence is developing, but we still can't figure out what the hell to eat. Why?
I really, truly believe it's because there's amazing, high-paying and high-dollar corporations that are making our food. And so they are the ones that spearhead the confusing information on the front of packages that say, this is a good source of this, or this is really good for this. But yet it's the things that don't make any noise that are the most powerful and the most important for our health. And that's going to be the perimeter of the grocery store, typically your fruits and vegetables, your produce section, the stuff that doesn't have flashy taglines as being the most important for your health, or are the peaches and the apples and the apricots and the carrots and the Brussels sprouts and those things that don't actually have a campaign behind them. And that's really where these food corporations come in and they confuse us. They're like, oh, eggs are bad. You need to eat breakfast cereal. It's like, well, who put that campaign out there? Was it the breakfast cereal company? Because if you look at the data, that's exactly where it came from. It was Kellogg's that said the eggs were bad because they wanted the market share of breakfast time. So they wanted everyone to eat their breakfast cereal instead of eating eggs. So they said eggs are bad. And then people jump on that bandwagon and go, oh, eggs are bad. We need to eat this sugar-filled, wheat-filled breakfast cereal instead. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Like, I'm definitely a proponent of eggs because eggs are what has been done to eggs. Eggs come out of a chicken, and usually they're washed off and put in a carton. Like, that's it. Opposed to a breakfast cereal. Like, what is it? Have you ever read the side of the package of the breakfast cereal? Did you know that one of the first things it says is enriched wheat flour? And enriched wheat flour is caused because, or is put in there because enrichment means that they need to put nutrition back in it because they've milled it instead of just grinding it and making it into flour. They grind it, they wash it with chemicals typically, and then they bleach it so it's white flour. And then since it's white flour and it has no nutritional content in it, they must enrich it. So they have to add synthetic vitamins back to it so it's not harmful for you. So it's like, okay, just that process alone, and that's just the first ingredient in most breakfast cereals, not to mention the laundry list of other ingredients in there, which if wheat flour is the first one, it's better than most because a lot of them, the first ingredient is sugar. And sugar, if you actually look, which we talk about this in my course, the sugar is a drug. It is a drug. It sends off the same reward signals in the brain as cocaine does. So it's like, ooh, this super sugary breakfast cereal. Of course your kids are going to want it. It's like a drug. It makes you feel good, but therefore it makes you feel good for a short amount of time, and then your blood sugar crashes, and then you're ornery and nasty, and the teachers can't understand how they can't get a class of 30 kids that are all on this sugar crash to do what they're supposed to. Like it's crazy at the corporations and what they've done with food. If you really want to eat well, the closest to nature you can get is the best for you, no matter what it is. If it's going to be beef, do grass-fed. That's closest to nature. It's actually eating off the land what it's supposed to. If you're going to eat cereal, like the least amount of ingredients, the best, the better. Or if you're going to do like breakfast, I mean, the eggs. Yeah, eggs have more cholesterol, but eggs is more of a natural substance than cereal is.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So someone that may listen to this that doesn't know a lot about nutrition, and we're going to get into the obesity thing here in a minute, but someone that doesn't know about nutrition, what's the first thing you teach them, or what's the first couple of things you teach them?
Without going too much, but yes, the first thing that I focus on is water. Again, we talk about plastic bottles, but water. Just drinking more water, because you'd be surprised at how much that will change your life. I actually had one client, or she wasn't a client, she was just kind of a friend that we were talking, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and she dropped probably like 30 pounds. And I was like, what happened? Where'd you go? Like, what did you do? What did you learn? And she was like, you know what? She was like, we started talking about it. And she's like, you know what? The biggest change? She's like, I just started drinking water instead of drinking soda or drinking whatever sugar beverage or not drinking enough. And because a lot of the signals that we get in our brain that's like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to go to the fridge, it's actually thirst that we're confusing because food is so readily available that we don't drink water. I would say most of the population runs around dehydrated. I would lump myself in that population a lot of the times too. And that's why I focus on it with all my clients, is being properly hydrated does so many things for your body. It pumps up your cells. When your cells are full of moisture, your body can run better. Yeah, you pee more, you release toxins faster, and your body just works better, like more of like a well-oiled machine. So the first thing I always work on when I talk to clients is drinking more water. Like I said, we do not drink enough. And then the next thing is detoxification. One, water. Again, water. Water is one of the best ways to detoxify your body because you're actually hydrating enough to flush things out. Your kidneys are important. Your kidneys are so important. So if you're flushing them out, getting stuff out of your body, it's not causing damage. And then the very next thing that I talk about is fiber. So increasing your fiber, i.e., the best sources are from food. But anyway, increasing fiber also gets rid of toxins. And that's one of the best ways to cleanse. So water and fiber are really the two keys that I start with everybody. And that's the first 2 weeks in my course. We go more into specifics for sure, but those are the two main ones that I talk about. that you started with.
I definitely eat way more fiber than I ever did. I ate a lot, but how much is an adult fiber is an adult supposed to have in a day? It's a lot.
No, and this is my quiz for you. Do you remember?
16 grams,
How
32
much?
grams, 32
Ooh,
grams.
close. 38. 38 for a man and 25 for a woman.
I need a head of lettuce. Where is it? Give me it to I got to get that 38 grams. Well, that's a lot. So I can
I
see
mean,
where
it
you
is a
say
lot.
supplements can help you with that. But you say fiber, you want to get most of your fiber from food sources.
Food sources, or at least from something that someone that is educated to tell you. Like, and as much as I don't like to point out specific companies, but like Metamucil, there's certain ingredients in Metamucil that I would not touch with a 10-foot pole.
Well, point them out. If it's not good for you, people need to know that.
Right. So it's like the food colorings and the artificial flavors and all those kinds of things. When a good fiber is going to be more your psyllium husk or your chia seeds or flax seeds or those kinds of things. Like the kind of the nuts and seeds are going to have a lot more of your fiber, or there's fiber supplements. But if you look at the back, if it's like, oh, this is a psyllium, like psyllium is good. Psyllium is started with a P. It's Psyllium. It's pronounced psyllium. So that one, so if you see it, so if it says, oh, this is a psyllium supplement, and then you look at the back of it and you look at the ingredients, if it has a laundry list of things you cannot pronounce, that is not the product you want to buy. And that's what Metamucil is.
Well, let's get into this. So there's something that happened recently, and I just, I think I heard it a while ago, but it didn't really register as much as it did this last time I heard it. But something happened that has never, ever happened in the entire history of the human race. And that is that more people this year will die from obesity-related illnesses and diseases than starvation. That's never, ever happened in human history. Why is that?
We've just been on that scale for a while. Like we're getting fatter and sicker and fatter and sicker and sicker, and it's finally overtaking the populations that are malnourished. So it's been a trend that's been happening for a long time. And yeah, it's crazy statistic of those kinds of things. And it's one of my favorite lines, and I just forgot it. Like, how did that happen? But that school age children, like this is the first time in history that the children's that were born, say millennials, or the children that are born after the millennials, so the Generation Z, that generation, because of the health crisis that we're in, their life expectancy is actually shorter than their parents. And that is the first time in history that that's ever happened. So we're basically, it's not very nice, but we're basically peaking as a culture. Like as far as where we've hit our life expectancies was the longest it's ever been. Our health has been the best because of modern medicine, but because of modern medicine, it's like now the pendulum's swinging back in the other direction. Since modern medicine has fixed so many things, we just count on it and we don't take anything into our own hands. So people are like, oh, well, if I get sick, I'll just go to the doctor. Like, I don't need to be careful. I don't need to watch what I eat or exercise or anything like that, because like if I have a heart attack, it's fine. They'll just go into the hospital and they'll cut me open and put a stent in there and I'll go on my merry way. It's like it's just that pendulum is starting to swing back the other direction. And it's just brings more people to the knowledge and the awareness that they need to take care of themselves. They need to pay attention to what's going into their body. They need to move their body. They talk about that sitting now is super bad for our bodies just because we're sitting in the same position. And you think about it, and I talk about this with my clients, is we're in this sitting position all the time. What did you, besides sleeping? So when you get up, you sit at the breakfast table. So you're sitting. You drive to work, you're sitting. You, most of the time, the 9 to 5 people, then they sit at an office desk, they sit, and then they drive home, they're sitting. And then you eat dinner or eat meals, you're again sitting. So you're sitting with your arms forward. So anytime you can actually get your body out of that position, like out of the sitting position, like standing and moving and stretching and walking and moving your arms back, like you can't move your arm, like moving your arms back towards your back outstretched, like actually practicing those kinds of things actually improve your health because we're always in that sitting position. So it's just kind of happened. It's to answer your question. It keeps.
I don't want to interrupt you, but isn't one of the main reasons why especially children are obese is because of sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and it's in every damn thing you eat? It's in a package almost.
It's because of lack of education in parents, and especially it comes down to, in most families, both parents work now. So having both parents work, there's not really time or the effort or the love of actually cooking because it's easier and more convenient to go have someone else cook your food, to go pick up food at a grocery store, go get fast food, or it's just super convenient to have someone else do it for you. And that's where we've kind of gotten to the society. It's so easy. It's so easy to have someone else do it, especially being in the city. It's like there's so many restaurants. You can go to a restaurant every day of the week and not actually ever cook anything. But if you watch any of these cooking shows, you see how much salt and fat they put in stuff. I mean, it's just naturally that we're going to keep getting bigger and bigger because we're not making our food. We don't know what's going into the food. Like if you look at a packaged product, I mean, can you pronounce any of the things that go into it? It's because a corporation is making your food, not a human. If a human is making a food or a human is making cookies, are you going to put shelf stabilizers and artificial sweeteners or food colorings or all these things that we can't even buy as a consumer? And that's in the foods that we eat. So if you're going to make a cookie is butter, flour, sugar. That's maybe some chocolate chips, maybe some other flavorings, depending on what it is. Like that's what chocolate chip cookies should be. But if you actually read a chocolate chip cookie package from the store, there's 50 plus ingredients in it.
It's frightening.
Yeah. So the more of that you eat, the worse off you are, essentially is what it is.
Well, you're touching on something here that I want to bring up with you as well. And that is the mindset and attitudes of people who are either someone that may listen to this who realizes that, my diet is terrible. I need to change. But you also have to change your mindset. How do you teach your clients to change their mindset?
One of the things is just being aware. And one of the practices that I've put into place, and I've gotten in and out of it, but is meditation. Like meditation and actually calming down, because so many times we're like, go, 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 go. Like either sleep and then you get up and you go, 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 go. But actually taking a few moments, I try to shoot for 20. I actually did 25 minutes before our podcast here, but just actually sitting and breathing, like taking a few deep breaths and actually calming down while we're awake and alert, not sleeping, but having that calm, full mind allows you to process things better. I believe it's like, oh, okay. Like I just feel better mentally, and then you start feeling better physically. And a lot of times you actually make those choices. But again, like I talk about in my course, there's so much of what not to do out there. So what we do in the course is focus on what to do. So focusing on what we want instead of focusing on what we don't want gets more of what you want.
So I know you grew up in a small town, but you're a city slicker now. But you also grow a lot of your own food. How do you do that?
Oh, one of my favorite things. So I've been trying to grow food for a lot of years, but because everyone, as a nutritionist, they're like, "Oh, you must have a great garden." And to be honest, I am really successful at killing things. Until I was at a show and there was a lady across from me. I was a I had a table and I was talking about nutrition and the importance of cleansing and things like that. And someone across from me had a table. It was in an event. And she had this food growing machine. It was full of food. It was all this kale and Swiss chard, and I have no idea what else was on it, but it was full of greenery and it was gorgeous. And I went over and I asked her and I was like, "What is this thing? I don't know what it is, but I have never been drawn to something so intently before." And I picked a piece of kale off the top of it and I ate it, and it was so sweet. I was like, what is this? And she's like, "This is a tower garden." And I was like, I had just started my business and I'm like, I am pinching pennies together. I have no extra money to spend on things. I was like, but tell me how to get this. Like, I want this. And I bought it. It's been about 4.5 years since then. And I bought this thing, the tower garden, and it makes me look really good as a gardener. And I'm still killing things that I try to grow in the ground. Like it did not give me a green thumb by any means, but it makes me look like I have a green thumb. It looks amazing and it is covered in vegetables. I constantly am testing different vegetables to see what it can grow, but it actually, the thing that I love most about it is that it's automated. And I really think that's why I haven't killed it. You plug it in, but you fill it with water. There's a 20-gallon reservoir in the bottom, and then it's kind of built on top of each other, on top of itself, essentially. There's no soil in it. It's just water and the nutrients that you actually get from the Tower Garden company that you put in it. And you plug it in and it's on a timer and it goes on and off depending if it's inside or outside, because you can grow it inside. And it just takes care of itself. Like, I go check on it maybe once a week. I maybe put water in it if it needs it. Like right now it's August. In August in Phoenix, I put water in it every few days because August is hot. But here in Colorado, I put water in it maybe once a week. And so what it's doing is it's using the same water in that reservoir to water the plants. So it uses 90 to 98% less water than in the ground gardening does. And it's automated. So I love it. Like I said, it makes me look really good because it's always green and lush and happy. And I'm like, yeah, I did that.
So even if you're someone that lives in a condo or apartment or in the city, you can now grow your own food.
Yes, you can grow your own food. The thing, you do need sun exposure, or you can have grow lights on it that you can actually grow it inside. So the whole technology was actually created for NASA so they could grow plants in space, because talking about this trip to Mars, like they need a way to grow greens. So this is actually technology created for that, so they could grow greens on the space station or in this journey to Mars so they can actually stay alive, because we need plants. As humans, we get a lot of our nutrition, vitamins and minerals are those key things that I talked about. Vitamins and minerals we get from plants. And we can't freeze dry enough plants to actually sustain. So having a way to actually grow them continuously in a machine like this that's self-contained, will grow anywhere. And yeah, it doesn't leak. So it's all self-contained, and there's no soil. So you don't have to worry about it being super dirty or things like that. But it's been amazing. And things grow quicker too, because it's not an in-the-ground garden. The roots are actually exposed to oxygen, which allows the plants to actually thrive. And they grow so much quicker because the roots normally don't get, if you're in the ground, the roots don't get oxygen like they do in the tower garden. So it's been a fun contraption, and I've moved it 4 times currently. I've grown in an apartment, I've grown in a house, I've grown in the heat in Arizona. I've also grown in the snow in Colorado currently in the last 4 years, and it still amazes me at how it makes me look good, which I love. So I'm getting a lot more plants because, again, I preach eating plants is key. And one of the best ways to eat plants is to eat plants that you grow yourself, because you know exactly what was put on them, because you either put it on them or you didn't. So that's one of the best ways to get plants. And then the carbon footprint of growing your own is like, hey, I am eating plants that I walked from my garden to the house. Like, there's 0 carbon footprint in that. So it makes me feel good too.
There's many reasons for disease. And when something I was thinking, we're all going to die someday, no matter how well you eat or whatever. Someday you'll die, but you want to feel better until that time. And I remember when my mother was passing and the end was near, she said, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken much better care of myself. So that's what you're doing, right? You're providing people to be able to take much better care of themselves and get through all the bullshit misinformation that's out there about what the hell we're supposed to eat. It should be simple. It should be simple.
It's true. Yeah, honestly, I would rather live healthier and better and live a shorter life than live 100 years of misery. Like, really, like it's really about, they say it's really about the life in your years rather than the years in your life.
And it was Socrates, I believe, that said, health is the first wealth.
Yes. And it's so true. I mean, think about that. When people are sick, I mean, you pay anything to feel better.
Right. That's all you think about is, I wish I felt better. I wish I felt better.
I know.
And health is the first wealth, right?
Yep.
Because you could have all the money in the world, and if you're sick, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. So health truly is wealth, and going back to the foundations of what we really need and not what is technically advertised to us, which is key.
How can people find out more about you, about your course that I took, the 12-week course that was a huge help for me? Way more fiber. Sugars become like a tool of the devil to me.
A bad word.
Yeah, like the tool of the devil, sugar. And
hey, and I never said sugar was bad. I just made you, look at it.
In your course, you say that if you get to a certain level, it becomes toxic. Is that true?
Yeah, that is
right.
True.
So
that is true with anything.
But with the level of sugar that's in every damn thing you look at off the shelf, we're all being poisoned.
I try not to think about it that way, but yes, yeah, it's true.
You can get angry. You can get angry at the corporations, or you can say, "Oh, we need to pass more laws." But you know what? It comes down to you. So read the damn label, and if you see all this stuff in it, don't eat it. Go to the gardener, or go to the farmer's market, or go get some grass-fed beef or whatever. Some people say, "Oh, I can't afford to eat organic." I tell you what, I can't afford not to eat organic, because I'm either paying the organic farmer now, or I'm paying the doctor in the hospital later.
That is exactly true. It's what you pay for. You pay for what you get. And if you're paying for good foods, you're going to feel better. And I mean, ask anyone who's sick. Just ask them what they would pay to feel better.
Well, enough of my preaching. How can people find out more about you?
Okay. So yes, I have a website, and it's the number 2 fuelyourbody.com. So that's my website. Honestly, the best way to get a hold of me is to give me a call or send me a text message to my my business line, and that's 928-421-1246. Or if email's more your style, it's Nikki at my website, which is tofuelyourbody.com. So Nikki at tofuelyourbody.com. Those are the best ways, and I'm happy to share the course or kind of get to know you and see what the best option for you would be. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this all will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is an incredibly important thing to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you. And one of my sign-offs and my favorite little, I guess, a limerick kind of thing is, if it is a plant or it is made by a plant, it's good for you. If it's made in a plant, it's not good for you.
All right. I'll stick that in my cranium too. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening. And please leave any comments or suggestions. We're always looking for ways to improve our show and make it the best show it can possibly be. Visit mindfulaccord.com, where you can find additional episodes and you can follow our blog. We give some helpful information on mindfulness, meditation, and just ways to manage our everyday stressful lives. And most importantly, if you know of a friend or a family member that would benefit from this story, please share it with them. Until next time, I'm Rich Decker.